Hello everybody, Joe Cool here, and you too can do it yourself. You can build yourself a skimmer for the low price of whatever it costs you. Alright, now the funny business is over. Let's get down to it. You can basically build a skimmer out of almost any container, cylinder, tube, bucket. Where's my bucket? Yes, you heard me. You can turn a 5-gallon bucket into a skimmer as long as you have a nice tight-fitting lid. You can pick those up at the home store with a lid, has rubber seal around it. Snap it on, boom, done. Well, not necessarily. But anyways, let's get to it. Let's see, who was it that, Reef Junkie, that's right. You were asking about, he had almost only so much space to put in a skimmer. Well, go to the local home goods store or whatnot, get yourself a container that has the footprint of the space you have, right? You're thinking, what the heck am I going to do with this 27-quart container? This one's actually a little too wide for you. You want a little skinnier one, but this is about 12 1/4. You said 11 and something inches wide. Get yourself a container like this, preferably without these snaps on here, mainly because you want a completely flat surface all the way around, because eventually you're going to put silicone here. And yes, silicone does not stick to plastic very well, but it will once you squeeze it in. There's not a lot of pressure in here. You're not putting a lot of water pressure forcing against the seal, so it'll keep it tight and you'll be able to use it just fine. You might have some luck using these snaps, but I suggest you just get one without these handles on it. Simple lid on it. So there's multiple ways of doing this. You can create a Venturi, as I've shown you. Boom. This is a large one. This is an injector style Venturi, not a jet one. I have a jet one over there. It's almost identical, but it has a barb on the top. That was using these parts. Remember? Extra money you got to spend if you build one of those. I even got 1/2-inch T, simple as this barbed one for 1/2-inch vinyl tubing, with a piece of RODI tubing in there, or ice maker line. And I just simply wrapped some Teflon tape around it and cut the slit in it and slipped it in there. Boom, Venturi. Okay, so you can go to Venturi route, or you can do a recirculating pump with a needle wheel pump. Now, you say to yourself, well, why shouldn't I just buy a factory skimmer or whatnot? Like, I think you were saying you can get one $300-400. Well, you could buy a size, what is it, PSC 1000, which is way more than you need for a skimmer of a tank your size, 100 net gallons. And it's like $130. Don't quote me exactly, but somewhere in that area. Okay, what's a container cost you? $10 maybe? Cheap, even cheaper than that most of the time. Some PVC parts, no biggie deal. Okay, you got it made. You could either make this into a recirculating skimmer and just use a pump. Could be a MaxiJet or similar pump, the other name brands that are out there. I just happen to have one sitting here. And you can use this to just supply the water to your sump. These actually work pretty well, and that's a pretty good amount of water flowing through there for your size setup. So you have an in, you'll have your circulating pump, and then at the bottom you'll put a fitting in with a 90, and you want the 90 about a 1/2 inch off the bottom, just enough that you can try and keep these bubbles from getting into your return line. Now in your case, I think you had some head height, so you could raise this up. Not the full height, of what the tank you have next to it, but possibly, and you can run this right out the side. You can also, for back pressure, you can run this up some to keep the level in your sump and put a ball valve or a gate valve on it to adjust the height of the water in this chamber. All right, so if you want to cut holes in this plastic, I suggest you use like a uni seal. You can order them online, they're really cheap. It's a rubber seal. You cut the hole, like the 3/4 inch ones is 1.25 inch hole saw. Now the trick to cutting plastic, and say I wanted to cut a hole in this piece of acrylic, is you go backwards. I know it sounds funny, but the act of cutting into it, especially the drill bit, is what usually cracks it right off the start. Is that it just grabs the plastic and it causes a fracture. So you say, well, how is it going to go through it, backwards? It will. It'll take a little time, but I suggest that you go backwards. And now on the softer plastics, you're good going forward and forward motion with the drill bit. Once the teeth get there, that's when you're definitely going to want to go backwards. You can cut the whole hole out going backwards. I also recommend that you go through, when you have the option to, you go through halfway on one side and then the other half on the other side. That'll give you clean edges on both sides. So once you get the hole cut and put the uni seal in, like for your pump, your two connections, you have a suck and then a return where all the air is going through. Bam, you're good. Now you talk about the top here. Well, there's a couple ways you can do it. I would say you get a 4 inch to 2 inch PVC reducer. Cut you a hole in the top here. Put some cement glue, some hot PVC cement glue around the edges. It's not going to look pretty. Doesn't really need to. Around the edges of it, maybe even mark it out and put a little bit underneath it so it sets in it. Now, like I said, this is not under high PSI pressure. You're not really worried about, leaking too much. If this was under load and it's all sealed up and you're forcing a lot of water into it, yeah, it would probably leak. But that's not the case. So you get that reducer and you put it on there. You get another piece of 2 inch pipe, okay, and then you get a second 2 inch to 4 inch reducer in reverse, okay. Now let me grab one to show you guys what I'm talking about, and I have a couple right here. That's 243. Okay, well, I got a couple of them, different sizes. This is a 4 to 3. This is a 3 to 2. You probably could just use the 3 to 2. It's a little less expensive, but really these aren't that much at Home Depot or Lowe's or any of your home stores, not calling any particular. But on the second one, there's a little ridge inside here. You want to take a Dremel. I mean, a sander would take forever, but if you had a Dremel or something, cut this out so the 2 inch pipe will slide through this, okay? So you have the 2 inch pipe will come up inside here about past the bevel, about halfway in between this flat spot, okay? And then you'll put a piece of 3 inch pipe in here. You can buy them in 2 foot lengths. They're not expensive at the home store. And then you get you a 3 inch cap, or if you do the 4 inch, you put a 4 inch cap on the top. You put a little hole in it. You buy yourself a small barb there at the home store. They sell them where they have all the little fittings. Where I got these T fittings. Where I got these barbs that screw in. They sell them with all the brass fittings, all the nylon, all the push connects in that section at your hardware store or home store. Okay, so you put one in the top. You tee that into your suction for your recirculating skimmer, and it will help pull the air through. And especially if you're using ozone, it'll keep using the ozone so it doesn't get out. the water coming out, the ozone isn't in the water, the ozone is in the bubbles. So as long as the system is sealed, you won't have to worry about the carbon, dealing with carbon and all that if you're using ozone. But that's a whole other topic we're not going to go through right now. So anyways, that does help pull the air through. And then if you want to, you can drill a hole in here, put another one of these barbs, screw it in there, drill the right hole so it threads in there with some Teflon tape or something to make it tight. Maybe put a little glue around it. You could run a piece of tubing like this down into a gallon water jug or something, and you can have this constantly draining into a skimmate container. I have a 5-gallon, you know, like with water cooler style jugs, and I fill that up with my old skimmer before I just modded it in that long video that I did and all that. I'd fill that 5 gallons up in a month. If you're making 5 gallons of skimmate on your 250 net gallons a month, tell me how much you spent for that skimmer and I'll tell you how much I spent on mine. Alright, anyways, aside from that, so anyways, if you do decide to do this line into there, and you do use ozone of course, and you're sucking from the top of the cap, goes off cap that's there, make sure even if you empty out the skimmate bucket that you leave an inch of water. You want the tip of this underwater so that when you're sucking air, you're not, you know, allowing any chance of the air, you know, the ozone gas to get back out of here, and you're pulling air from the chamber where the bubbles are coming through. And then you'll clean it just like you would a regular skimmer. Clean the neck with a rubber spatula, your finger, whatever you want, a sponge, you know, clean it and whatnot. So anyways, you do all that, bam, skimmer, essentially. It's not the right size parts, but you make your collection cup up there. Yes, it's odd. It's not the norm, but if you run the water right up to the top here, adjust it on your input. You can either do it by your input or a gate valve or a ball valve on your drain line off of the skimmer container. You'll be set. And then all the foam, of course, air rises in the water, so all the foam will come out into your collection cup. And if you use like the 1000, the size 1000 needle wheel pump, you'll have so much skimmate you won't believe it. It'll work, especially in something this size. You might have to control the air into it some, just so you don't end up getting the air, you know, micro bubbles back into your system through your sump. Now, here's another idea. This is a reactor from a company that's no longer in existence, so I guess I could say who they are, Next Reef. This was a GFO reactor or whatever. Anyways, this reactor has an input in the center. It has a tube going down the center here, connected to the inlet, and then it has an exit just at the top. Now, that's not enough alone to make a skimmer out of. You're gonna have to put in a way to get the water out, because if you force it in, doesn't matter how much air you put in there, eventually at your skimmate hole, all the water is going to start spewing out of there. So you can either take the risk of drilling a hole, you can make a platform to set this on, you can drill a hole in the bottom in reverse, because this is acrylic. You'll definitely snap this stuff. Put you in a uni seal, put you in a piece of pipe, probably 1/2 inch at this size, or 3/8, and put a valve on it out here to drain it. Or you could go in the top, just like these fittings, and then you'd run it all the way down inside. The only thing is that you would want to shorten or put a cap on here, and maybe put some more holes inside of this tube, so you have a little gap of clear water versus where all the bubbles are at, and this would actually work as a skimmer. There is an actual company out there that makes some really nice skimmers, and they use a Venturi. They're basically round, flat on top. The Venturi comes in the top, goes straight down. It goes into a cup. Now the pipe comes down through the inside. It's got an angle on it, a 45. It goes into another piece of acrylic, or could be PVC if you make it yourself. And then it makes all the bubbles and stuff plume upward. And then there's a drain in the bottom. Expensive. Great skimmers. They're modular. You can add parts to them. I'm not going to say the name unless they want to sponsor me or send me one to play with. Anyways, and then on the top, there's a hole and a tube and a collection cup, just like on your regular skimmer. Boom, simple. So I would have to pay $700-800 for that, or I can make one. Okay, back to a bucket. If it's got water in it, like you need to know. If you decide to use a bucket, look at the width of this bucket. Now, it gives you a lot of water. I mean, 5 gallons of water. I mean, what are most of your skimmers hold? Not usually 5 gallons of water. So you can make all your fittings in the lid. You can do your drain out the lid, or you can, I would recommend probably doing a uni seal and doing a drain out the bottom. And then the other two, your feed, if you decide not to use a Venturi, you can do feed in the top. You could even do the needle wheel pump. Might have some issues priming, but usually if you have the water primed it really good, it will be fine. But you can use the uni seals on the bucket, no problem. Start your drill and then going backwards once you get the teeth of the hole saw up to it. But there's no reason why you can't just put a 1000 on this. Once again, would work great. Recirculate, 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 and then just feed it. You know, you can use, you don't have to, I mean, you probably want more in this. You got to do your flow rate based on how many gallons you have. And you can basically eyeball, can't even spit that word out, eyeball it just basically by the type of skimmate you're making, you know, the foam, whether it's wet or dry. If you get to a point where it's making great skimmate, really nasty looking stuff, and then it just gets light, like it's not taking any more out of the system, like it's already done its job and there's no more stuff for it to suck up, you can dial back the flow rate a little bit so you get a constant draw of everything out and you're not just like clearing it out and then waiting for something to happen. But if you had a variable DC pump, you can adjust the flow rate very easily with what was going in it. And you definitely want a DC pump with enough power if you decide to go the Venturi route. The Venturi route and the DC pump for larger skimmers probably going to cost you about the same as you would buy the recirculating, like a needle wheel pump. So I don't necessarily recommend you buy 2 pumps unless you don't really care. You can because the feed pump can run off your return if you have a couple of reactors going, if you have enough GPH to get the water through your skimmer to what you need. In other case, I would either, you could save yourself on the pump and buying 2 pumps if you just use a Venturi. From your feed source, run the Venturi into your skimmer, and then not have a recirculating one. The good thing about having a recirculating skimmer is that it's constantly making air. That amount of air that's going to go into that water is going to be constant. The flow of it inside is going to be constant. The only difference you would have is if you decided to go feed and recirculating, then you could adjust how much water goes in and out of it simply by speeding up your pump, adjusting the gate valve or ball valve on your drain line, and then you'll be good to go. Now, there's no reason why you can't scale this up super size. I could take a 32-gallon brute, put 4 of those size 1000s on it, and then just have a feed line going to it, or I could do a bunch of Venturis. The thing about when you have that many Venturis, if you're only going to use one pump, you need a pump powerful enough to push the water through to make the bubbles. And I would say the main difference between the recirculating or a needle wheel pump is the bubbles will be finer with the needle wheel pump than they are with the Venturi. Now these still work, like I said, 5 gallons of skimmate, 1 month Venturi. And my Venturi wasn't as efficient as the injector style that I just came up with. Well, not that I've seen one picture online of it out of all the Venturis I looked up. Decided to make one. But the way I have it set up, this is even better than the one that I have that has the jet style with this fitting inside the T. Instead, I like this. Less parts to deal with. You don't have to worry about sanding this down and dealing with all that. Bada bing, bada boom, done. Okay. So, this works great. Makes really good bubbles. They work very fine with the pulling stuff out of water, as I've expressed with the quality of skimmate that I've made or amount. But if you really want to get great, you put a recirculating and a Venturi on there. That way you're getting multiple size bubbles. The only thing I've found that I really don't like about the needle wheel pumps is all the bubbles are super fine. Well, especially when you're using ozone, you don't want huge bubbles at all times, but you don't also want the micro bubbles, because the surface amount, all the surface contact of the air bubble with the water, the more surface, the more it can pull out. But then again you say, well, what if I have 1,000,000 tiny bubbles versus 1,000 larger bubbles? I guess the surface area would probably roughly end up being the same. I mean, yes, you probably have more surface area on the micro bubbles, but I think in conjunction, the larger bubbles mixed with the micro bubbles will help, really move stuff through the top of your skimmer. The larger bubbles help push stuff out, like your foam that you're making, whereas the little ones, they just keep building up, and it takes so long to push it out. So if you can use both, fantastic. Because I tell you what, I can feed a lot of water through my 15,000 DC pump through a single 3/4 inch line, and that's way more than most of you are going to use for a skimmer. Now, you can get smaller than this. If you want to make one out of an old reactor, you can use RODI setups, like this right here. You could take a reactor like this, that's been sitting around for a while. You could take the chamber on the inside, like the canister that goes inside, and retrofit it with a piece of PVC in the middle, so all the air doesn't do anything. Anyways, never mind that. Take the container out, manufacture or connect it with a coupling or something. There is a round tip like this that your cartridge would technically go up to. Like if you ever change out a sediment filter, you see that little ring where it's impressioned into it. Even if you gotta glue some stuff together to make it happen, make the tube go down, right? You'll need a second hole. You have to drill a second hole through the body in order to have a drain, or you'll have to do it through the side. But you can do it just like I explained that one. You can make it out of an old reactor or RODI cartridge. You can make one out of a 5-gallon water cooler. The thing you want to get is you want to make sure it's clean. It's made out of HDLP, or you don't want it to be PET or anything like that. You want something that's not going to leach chemicals into your water for your fish tank. There's lots of threads on the site on Reef to Reef that will tell you what you can and can't use. You know, brutes are made out of good materials. You can make the collection cup out of whatever you want, because it's not ever going to contact the fish tank water. Again, like I have a 2.5 gallon or 3 gallon sealing paint bucket that I've got as my collection cup on top of my skimmer. I don't care, because none of that is ever going to get anything that was ever in there, which has been mucked up for years now with the fish poo and everything else that's been in there. Not too worried about it, but nothing's going to get, it's not going to go in reverse, the bubbles and all that stuff. You know, even if they fall back down the neck, it's going to push over the side, hits the bucket, it doesn't matter. You could use a fish tank. You can use a small 5-10 gallon fish tank. Glue a glass lid to it, piece of glass, cut the glass, make sure it's not tempered. Skinny glass is tempered generally. Easy way to tell if you have tempered glass: take your iPad, your phone, your laptop, and get a solid blue screen on it. Alright? Then you get polarized sunglasses. You stick the screen on the other side of the glass and you look through it. And as you tilt your head, if you can no longer see it, if it blacks out, you get lines in it and then it blacks out where you can't see it, tempered glass. If you don't have tempered glass, when you turn your head to the side or turn the glasses, piece of polarized film, even if you have a sheet of polarized film and you turn it, it'll do the same thing. If you can still see the blue once you turn it 90 degrees, or as you turn it, it doesn't go black, then you just got plate glass or float glass. You can drill right through it, no problems. So anyways, if you want to build one out of PVC, you just buy whatever size you can get. Most home stores only carry 4-inch. Generally you want something wider, unless you have the room to make it 4 or 5 feet tall. I don't recommend doing 4 or even 6-inch PVC. If you've only got 20 inches or so under your stand to work with, then you would have to do multiple 4-inch PVC pipes. Like my system, I need to do like 6 of them or something. Yes, you can make 6 Venturis, branch them all off, put 6 collection cups up, and you can definitely make as many as you want. But if you have a garage adjacent to your tank, a closet, a cabinet you could shove it in that you won't see it, heck, you could use pretty much whatever you could fit in there. You can way oversize it and make whatever you want. And then if you do the PVC like I did with mine, you buy all the fittings. They make 4-inch caps they sell at the home store. Once you get into 6-inch, you have to go to the plumbing specialty store. If you see guys replacing water pipes on road crews, doing a road project or building a neighborhood, generally the blue pipe and the green pipe's sewer and the blue is drinking water. As long as it's not used, it's still virgin, well, or clean to some extent. PVC pipe, which hasn't been put into service. All you need is a scrap. The bigger the merrier. When they're building golf courses, I used to build golf courses. We used up to like 16 and 18-inch PVC pipes in some spots. So 12-inch would be pretty cool if you could get a short, squatty one. You can get a 2-foot piece. A lot of times, guys will just give you. My soul's trying to escape. Somebody say bless you. Anyways, if you can get a large diameter PVC pipe, you can make it short and squatty. You can do the Venturis. I recommend if you do it short and squatty, you just give a feed pump to it, put the drain in the side of it with a uni-seal, and get your recirculating setup with a needle wheel pump. Now, you can use, I don't recommend using bulkheads on curved tubes such as PVC pipe or buckets, anything that's round like a trash can. Just because they are never going to seal to it because they're not curved. So the uni-seals work great for that. There's a curve along with whatever you're doing, and when you shove the piece of PVC through it, it pushes on the PVC outward and it creates a seal, which generally works great. If it does leak a tad, let it dry it out, wipe it all down, and rub some hot PVC glue on it. It works great. Get it all over the outside of the PVC pipe, the rubber, the tank, the trash can, the bucket, you know, whatever you want to use. If you need to make bulkheads to go through a lid, top of a container like this, don't use standard PVC. Go into the electrical aisle and get, it looks like scheduled 80. Now, not all, just because it's gray doesn't mean it's scheduled 80, but a lot of the rigid gray pipe in the electrical section, the pipe itself is scheduled 80, but the fittings aren't necessarily scheduled 80, but they're heavy duty, they're UV resistant, and they do all that. But the thing about them is see, these threads bevel, and so does the female connector. So as you're tightening down, as you're tightening down, it gets tighter and tighter, and unless you got something that's that thick, it's never going to make a tight seal. I used them over there on my, this is the bottom of my 428 display tank. I used the beveled ones and it worked fine because I was able to get them tight enough. I beveled them, got epoxy in there, they're great. Anyways, get that, then you can buy over by the faucet parts section, valves and all that, you can get gasket rubber. You can see I got a hole cut out here because my DC pump, if you're using them externally, the gaskets they have with them, as you clean them, they tend to get conformed to whatever, how they were tightened down, and they'll leak after that. So I simply just made a new gasket, and that's what the hole's for. But you can take your scheduled 80, we should say, mark it out, and make you a gasket. And then when you tighten the two pieces together, not standard PVC scheduled 40, but the gray pipe in the electrical section, it's straight threaded. Mainly because it goes through your circuit panel, your breaker panel, whatever you want to call it, your breaker box, and those fittings are just a hole. They don't need any, they don't need to tighten up that much. So straight threads are fine for those. So that's why we use them when we're making bulkheads. So make you a gasket. You can, if you can find O-rings that size. This is just so much simpler. This was like $5. I got 2 pieces of this. You know, it's NSF or drinking water safe. It's made for faucets. Now that I say that, I don't see NSF on here, but it's made to replace faucet gaskets, and you know, anyways, probably made in China. But you make the seal and you tighten it up, and you can make any bulkhead any size you want, and a flat surface only. Whether you use this container, if it's a lid, you can use it on the lid here, and you can just glue PVC, standard PVC, right into it. It doesn't have to be scheduled 80. It could be 200 thin wall, like this stuff. All right, so now is the time to say, Joe, this is what I got. Can you help me design a skimmer? Or any questions about all this craziness? Feel free to ask me. Now, you guys need to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you can get my videos. Because I'm not always talking about this topic. I'm always talking about all kinds of other stuff. So if you guys want to know what they are without having to, you know, you're not going to get an alert on Reef to Reef that I've posted one in another thread unless you're like following me, you know, like some kind of sketchy, weird stuff, you know, like stalking me and stuff. But anyways, you could stalk me on YouTube, which would be just fine. So, as I get more and more subscribers, I will give some stuff away. I've already got some people interested in sponsoring me. I just need to get some more subscribers. So please, please, please subscribe to Joekoolreefvid on YouTube. Just watch this video and then subscribe to the to my YouTube channel. and you'll get all the videos as soon as they come up, even before I post them on Reef to Reef. And you can also ask questions on there and give me other topics, because we can explore anything. Like I said, I've spent hours figuring stuff out, so you don't have to, and you can learn by my mistakes and my things I've learned, and come up with good ideas, such as using this instead of making doing this deal, and we'll go from there. But please subscribe to the channel, follow me however you want to, please comment. I like to hear what you guys have to say. Try to be funny and keep it real at the same time. You know, no sense of throwing in a bunch of stupid scientific stuff. This is DIY. We're trying to make it happen and not spend a lot of money. I'd rather spend like these skimmers. You know, what do I need? $1,000 skimmer for this new setup? If I was to buy one online or buy a manufactured one, you know, I'd rather spend you know, $200 than spend the other $400 or, you know, $800 or so on some new fish or some new corals. So yeah, you know, that's me. So some things have their advantages. I'm not going to try and make a pump. I'm not going to try and make a DC pump. It's not like I work at some CNC shop and I can just build all this stuff. You know, it costs me way too much to do that. So but what you can do is, when you can build it, you do it. You can do it yourself for the low price of whatever it costs you. Have a great day, Reef to Reefers, and I hope you enjoyed this, and all you other guys that aren't part of the forum. And if you're not, get your butt on over there and sign up. It's free. Great community, great information, great friends, great help. What more can I say? Later.